Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the CarPod. So, today we're going to be focusing on IB history. So, at Hoover, history is a higher level course, meaning it's over 2 years. So, junior year, you'll start at the Gilded Age and end in the Great Depression. And we talk about history in junior year. Since it's history of the Americas, we talk about history in the United States, but also in Mexico and Latin America and Canada. And then senior year is a couple of different units. So the first part is the civil rights movement and apartheid. The second part is dictators from around the world. And then the third part, which is the entire spring semester, is 20th century wars. So, since history is like kind of my thing, we decided that I would talk about IB history on here. And since I've already talked about my CAS project and my EE in the first episode, if you want to hear about that again, you can listen to that. So, without further ado, let's start talking about IB history.
Okay, so I guess to begin, let's first talk about what your favorite unit to learn about was.
So, for me, I mean, history's always been my favorite subject, but so far this year, I thought it was really interesting to learn about apartheid because I just didn't know much about apartheid. I mean, I know a lot about the civil rights movement because, I mean, my family was very involved in it, and I mean, being born and raised in Alabama, you're kind of surrounded by that history. But apartheid was just something I never really knew about, and so that was probably my favorite so far. And then last year, junior year, I think probably the Mexican Revolution was the most interesting because we read The Underdogs, um, and just like with apartheid, Mexico's history is just something that I'm not familiar with at all, and so learning something new made it probably my favorite.
Yeah, cool. um, I guess, do you want to talk a little bit about like the structure of the class, like with the papers and the IAs and stuff?
Yeah. So I'll start with maybe how like the different teachers run
Yeah,
their
let's
classes.
talk about other teachers.
So in IB history, you'll have two different teachers over the course of 2 years. So junior year, you'll have Mr. Wendell, who we all love. We all love Mr. Wendell. And the way that his class is structured is so for homework, pretty much every night you'll have between a 10-15 minute video to watch and take notes on, and then in class the next day you'll have a discussion about it. Sometimes he does like competitions where you can present the information in a more creative way. um, he does have quizzes, little pop quizzes that aren't really
They aren't. If you watch the videos and take notes,
right.
they aren't hard. It's just 4 questions. Sometimes he throws in a few true or false questions, and Mr. Wendell will be like very lenient, and like even give you like a tenth of a point
Oh yeah.
sometimes. Like if he can tell like you kind of know what you're talking about, he's nice. Yeah.
Yeah. And then his tests are just standard, essay questions that you have the whole class period to work on. And so 12th grade year, you have Mr. Richardson, who we also love Mr. Richardson, and his class is structured very similarly. You have videos that are between 10 and 15 minutes long, and you take notes on them at night, and not at night, but for homework. And then when you come to school the next day, you do a discussion about it. There's significantly less quizzes in his class than Wendell's, but there are still activities that we do in that class, and his tests are very similar. Um, so the classes are run similarly, but Richardson and Wendell definitely have different
Yeah.
personalities, but they're both great teachers that really care about what they're teaching, and you'll learn a lot from both of them. So, what was the.
So do you want to like okay? So I know you kind of talked about how they do theirs, but like I was kind of more meaning, which is like good, but I was kind of more meaning that like the IA versus like
Oh,
papers, like how that breaks down on an IB level.
okay. So the IB history exam is going to be three different papers. Paper one is going to be like an OPCVL type assignment, which if you don't know, the IB loves acronyms. So that one means origin, purpose, value, content, and limitations. And so you'll get five different sources, which can range from speeches to letters to
cartoons.
yes, we
to
there's at least
cartoons.
one of those on every single one. And you have to answer questions about those. Sometimes you have to compare and contrast. Sometimes you have to connect two of them. And sometimes they're just as simple as what is this saying? Like, what does this, for example, political cartoon mean? So that's paper one. And on the IB exam in the spring, yes, in the spring, it's going to be about um, civil rights and apartheid. So paper two and paper three are similar. They're all questions talking about, the content of either class. So one of those papers, I'm sorry, I don't remember which one, is going to be about the content from Wendell's class. And then the other one is going to be on the content from Richardson's class. So both in Wendell and Richardson's class, you're going to practice both paper one and paper two, and paper three, depending on which class you're in.
Yeah.
But paper three and paper two are basically the same. Just the content is different.
And they're the essay style questions that we're talking about. Like that's what you do for the test. And usually both of them usually use like past exam questions. So you're getting practice with actual IB questions.
So yeah, in these classes you're constantly practicing for the exam.
Okay, so let's talk about the IA. What was your IA about? And I don't know if you really remember because I don't like what were the guidelines for the IA and stuff. I think there was like three different sections.
Yeah, three different sections.
Like an introduction, then like the actual thing. I think in there somewhere you had to do an OPCBL.
Yeah, the introduction had the OPCBL that you had to analyze like one or two of your sources in that sort of format. So once again, more practice for the exam. And then there was the introduction and then like the conclusion part where you kind of tie everything together. So my IA was about what traits made George Washington a different and better leader than like the rest of the founding fathers. Like what about their backgrounds made them different than George Washington? Like how was it that he was the one that kind of rose to the top, rose and became, general, president, all that stuff. So, I mean, which has nothing to do with anything that we learned about in IB history. So, I mean, that just goes to show that
it can be literally anything.
Right.
Any period of history.
Yeah.
Which it was really fun because, like, you could learn about something you've never learned before. Because, like, that's what I kind of focused on was because, like, mine was about JFK and his inaugural address. And, which to me was like something new because like we never really got that far in history in like any history class I've ever taken, and so that was like something I liked. It just can't be within the last 15 years.
It has to be like actual history. I think it's within the last decade.
Either the last 10
it's recent. It's very very recent. So like if you wanted to talk about one of the you could talk about that. You could talk about the Red Scare, but you can't talk about Trump's presidency because that's not considered history in IB's definition of it. So I agree that made it really fun because I mean I know someone who's a grade above us who did something about samurais. So I mean literally you could go all the way back to ancient history or you could do something as recent as the 20th century.
And it doesn't even have to be American history too.
Oh yeah.
You said samurais. That's not only a different time period, but also
a different country.
Yeah. Okay, so I think this really covers it all with the IA. It's really just whatever topic you want. I think it has some of the least structure out of all the IAs I've written.
That one and world religions, I think, are the
Yeah,
two.
because they're both very broad. Just stay within the general subject
Yeah.
kind of thing. Yeah. So,
Oh, also for the IA, I wanted to mention this about sources. Um, no, first, Wendell does not like tertiary sources, which are like encyclopedias.
Wikipedia.
Yeah, Wikipedia, encyclopedia. What is it, Britannica or something like that?
Britannica, yeah.
Can't you? It's not that you can't use that. He just prefers that you don't.
Yeah.
And Wendell's class, so 11th grade is when you're going to be writing your IA. So by the time you get to 12th grade, which is when the IA will be turned in, it'll all be done.
Yeah.
So 12th grade, you really focus just on the exam. Um, and with the sources, they don't have to be just books, or like primary sources. They can be like paintings. I know a couple people who used paintings as a source for them. Like their whole IA was just analyzing a painting, and obviously one of their sources would be the painting. And so that's just even more freedom that you have. You're not stuck on just certain sources even. So yeah, so it's not just, you could do art history, like I said.
Yeah.
So once again, it's just really broad what you get to choose from.
Yeah, and if broad is too big of a deal, like if that freaks you out, Wendell also has a whole file folder in his drawer of different things that you could talk about with
Right.
like specific periods that you might be interested in, and like there's something like he offered to us one student about like um something to do with like I can't remember now. It was like women like a certain I can't remember what they're called. The name of it was like kind of funny to me, but it was like I think it's some Japanese thing or
The foot
something.
binding stuff?
No, I don't think it was foot
Oh.
binding. It was like I don't know. But it was like I think it was basically women being used for sex kind of stuff.
Oh, I
But
know
don't
who you're
remember.
talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. I don't remember what it's called though. The Oh, it was during one of the world wars. So like, but
Yeah.
he comes across like these articles and he like cuts them out of newspapers or he prints them out specifically for people who are like, I have no idea what I want to write my IA about. So I mean, like, once again, you have all this freedom, but there's still structure. Your teachers aren't just gonna let you like go out and hang you out to dry or anything.
And that's true for the whole IB program. Nobody lets you just hang out to dry.
Oh yeah.
You're gonna be taken care of.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, so I guess let's talk about some tips. I know you talked to Mr. Wendell about what tips he might have, so do you want to start with those?
Yes. So Wendell had 3 tips for basically acing his class, which I can attest definitely worked, which I'm sure Claudia can attest to as well. So the first one is with the videos, watch the videos and take notes. That is literally the foundation of his class. If you do that, you will be fine. Take good notes, whether you write them out or type them. Just take notes. Pay attention to the videos because that will help you so much with understanding certain concepts, certain themes that are present, that are reoccurring in the history that we learn, and also just learning those little bitty details that he might be like, hey, that he might ask you about because he's like that. Which I just want to also say that these tips work in Richardson's class just because of how similarly they're structured.
Mr. Wendell and Mr. Richardson, first of all, their rooms are right next to each other, but also
yes.
like they're super like close, and so it like makes their classes like very similar, and you can see very similar themes in both of them, which is really nice.
They're best buddies, definitely. Like for a couple days in April, they'll switch. So like as by the time, as seniors, we're getting to the end of the new content and we start reviewing back what we learned junior year, like Wendell will come over to our class and like review with us, and Richardson will go over with the 11th graders, and that just goes to show how close they are, and they both make cameos in each other's rooms.
Oh yeah,
all the time.
All the time.
And so yeah, any tips that I talk about that work for Wendell's class will absolutely work for Richardson's class. And so the second one is to be prepared to read. We read a couple of books in history, specifically in Wendell's class.
Yeah.
Not we read books, we read
articles. There's like a picture, like the I think it was from Great Depression thing that we had.
Yeah.
Or was it the immigrants? It was the immigrants
Yeah.
in the Gilded Age.
Oh.
I don't remember what it's called. But it was like it was like really pretty pictures.
Yeah. Pretty. How the Other Half Lives?
Something like that.
Yeah.
I think that's what
it was. Yeah. And so, you read books. Like I mentioned, The Underdogs, which is the book that we read during the Mexican Revolution. Just be prepared to read, and not only read, annotate, which if you've been in IB, even for a year, even for half a year, you know how to annotate. Because similar to taking notes, that will help you so much, and it will also be really good supplemental information to the videos. Like the videos and the readings always go together. It's not like you'll have some random reading on some obscure topic. Like it's gonna connect back to the videos and to the whatever you're learning about at that point. And we read a little bit in Richardson's class as well, but mostly articles. Yeah. And so the same thing goes for that. And then Wendell also wanted me to stress that the readings are easy. They are not difficult whatsoever. The books that we read are probably under the reading level of IB students.
Yeah.
They're not overly complicated. And yeah, it's easy. The reading. It's not something that you'll be up late at night reading for hours because you're like, I don't know what this means. No, it's gonna be okay. And then the final tip from Wendell was to participate in class discussions because that will fill in holes in your knowledge. That will help you just really work through the content. And I mean, that is the class. It's discussion based, and so that helps keep class moving, and it also helps Wendell know what people aren't getting as good of a grasp on, so he can provide that supplemental information. And I mean, it's fun when people talk and discuss, and in Richardson's class is the same way. If you contribute, then it helps a lot.
Okay, I have a question for you.
Okay.
Because I know we didn't prepare for this.
I'm scared.
I was just thinking, because I know you're really good at participating. I've always noticed that in all of our classes. You've always been one that's very prominent in discussions. Do you have any tips for discussing things and being prominent? I don't know.
I mean, definitely prepare for class beforehand, which is part of the reason why Wendell stresses, and Richardson, they both stress, taking notes, doing your homework, annotating those readings, just making sure you know the content as well as you can before you come in. That really helps because, like I said, it helps me narrow down what questions I need to ask. Because how can I know what questions to ask if I don't know what I'm talking about, if I don't know what I don't know. And so that's a main thing. And just knowing that they're not going to judge you no matter how stupid your question is. Like I asked a couple days ago, Mr. Richardson, where Bosnia was, which is a country in Eastern Europe. And no, it wasn't Bosnia. It was, Armenia. I asked him where Armenia was. See, I don't even know. I don't know where Bosnia is. But see, even just kind of basic questions like that, just knowing that they're not going to judge you helps so much. And yeah.
Knowing the phrase there's no such thing as a bad question.
Yeah.
Sounds so cliche, but it's so true. There's if you don't understand something, then it's not a bad question.
Right.
You need the help. If you need the help, it's okay.
Right.
Nobody's judging you. In fact, most of the people that understand what they're doing in those classes are the people not paying attention. Right. So they really don't. Nobody cares.
Oh yeah.
And odds are somebody else is probably wondering the same thing. I know I was wondering the same thing as you, but I didn't really care enough to ask.
Right.
So I wasn't gonna.
Yeah, and if when they ask, does anyone have any questions? If you have a question or you have a comment, say it. I know, especially freshman and sophomore year, when I had just come to Hoover, and I barely knew anyone. I was so nervous to like sound stupid or like talk talk too much or just sound however, I was insecure about it, whatever. Um, and just it's a lot easier said than done. But trying to get over that, trying to work through that fear, through that insecurity, also helps so much because now I don't really care. Like
Yeah.
I'm gonna ask what I need to ask because at the end of the day, it's for my knowledge and it's to help me do as well as I can at the end of the year. So yeah, I don't know how comprehensive that was, but
Yeah. Did you have any other tips to add on to what Wendell said? Because I feel like, at least for me, he kind of covered everything.
yeah, because that's all I did.
It's take notes and pay attention,
right,
and you'll be perfectly fine.
yeah, I finished the third quarter last year with 101 average. So
Because he gives bonuses on pop
yes, he does give
sometimes.
bonuses. So you will do fine in that class if you just do the work, and it's not difficult at all. I mean, I think it takes me maybe half an hour to do because but I write a lot, so less time if you are actually good at taking notes and don't just write down
That's one
everything
thing
what
I
they say.
found is like I like to take like really short notes and really shorthand. So like it does help me to take notes and I take my own notes. But then also sometimes like if you look at a classmate's notes on top of your own notes, it can help fill in like
Right.
some like memory gaps and things. And it also might like maybe like sometimes like Charlie will notice things in videos. I'm like, I didn't think that was really important, but now that I'm looking at Charlie's notes, I'm like, maybe that was more important than I thought it was.
Right.
And so like I think that's one thing that's helped me too, is like being able to like compare notes with other people and see where one person may have thought something was more important than the other did.
Right.
And it might give you another perspective.
I also think studying together in that class is really nice because like Claudia said, there's something that I might notice in a video that she doesn't, or vice versa, and I'm like, oh, should probably know that, but I just completely glossed over it, So once again, that theme of just filling in the holes in your knowledge is what's gonna help you, and just finding any way that you can do that is gonna be helpful. But I mean, these teachers are so good. Richardson and Wendell are so good that you're probably not gonna have a huge amount of gaps.
Right.
So, Wendell I think hit it head on with how to survive both of Richardson and his classes. Yeah. So yeah.
And these last few minutes, do you have anything to say about pre-IB history?
I love pre-IB history, honestly. So ninth grade is with Mr. Walker, and that's world history, the second half of world history. So you should have done world history in eighth grade, and then you'll do the second half. So wherever you left off eighth grade is where you pick up ninth grade, and then sophomore year, which I think is my favorite content wise, which is American history. So you do like the colonization of the United States, so starting like with Jamestown and stuff like that, going all the way up to the Civil War and Reconstruction, which is that's American Revolution. That's my thing, guys. That is my area, and that's with Miss Ford. Both of those classes were really, really fun. Walker's class is similar to Richardson and Wendell, except he lectures in person. So like you're taking notes as he lectures. At least when we were there.
Yeah, because we had Walker before COVID, and I like Richardson didn't start doing lecture videos until COVID happened.
Right.
And so I don't know if Walker still does that or not, but because Walker would also use like crash course videos sometimes.
And those Mr. Ritchie? No.
There was Mr. Betts.
Yes, Paul Betts. No.
Which
was it Paul Betts?
I don't know.
I don't know.
Mr. Betts, the video, like the songs, the parodies.
I think so.
And then there was that other guy.
That really country guy.
I think it was like Mr. Ritchie or something like that. I don't know.
But Walker uses a lot of, like, he doesn't just stand there and lecture all day.
It's not just one man's opinion.
Right. It's, crash course videos. So if crash course history, John Green, We do love John Green. And if you're an IB Bio, we also love Hank Green too. And Chem. I think he does the Chem videos too. I don't really know, but and he does Crash Course. Different songs. He does Horrible Histories. If you know Horrible Histories, we watch some of that too. I love Horrible Histories. But Walker's class is very similar to Richardson and Wendell's, as far as we know. I mean, we're in 12th grade now, so it's been a while since 9th grade. So maybe he's changed, but I don't think so. And then Miss Ford's class is
Miss Ford's class we did have during COVID. It was, so that was what 2020 to 2021. Yeah. So it was like in the prime of COVID for school.
Yeah.
So that was a little bit of a harder class.
Yeah. I mean, history never hard for me.
Yeah. But like in terms of like balancing schoolwork. It's a bit harder because Miss Ford, at least when we had her, taught a lot more by using like textbooks and like finding
primary sources,
questions based on reading and textbooks.
Yes. She didn't lecture much. We used a lot of primary sources. I remember like we learned about the Constitution, post American Revolution. We read a lot of the Federalist Papers. We read a lot of the Anti-Federalist Papers. And so, her class is more, I guess, assignment based. I feel like we did a lot of assignments and a lot of reading. So the same thing I said about reading and annotating for Richardson and Wendell applies for Miss Ford's class too. I think in history in general in IB, if you do the work, you will be perfectly fine. Yeah. Like these teachers are so nice. They are so good at what they do, and they really care about you, and they care about what they're teaching, and you will not fall behind. They won't let you fall behind. No matter how much you may want to fall behind, they will not let you, they won't just let you go.
Right.
And I think pre-IB history does a good job of preparing you for IB history. Like, they set a really good foundation for you. So yeah, I mean, I liked both of those classes and what we learned in them.
I loved, one of my favorite things I think I really like about history was Absolute Monarchs from Mr. Walker, which I think is kind of funny because I remember going into that unit, Mr. Walker saying how this was like the unit that a lot of people struggle with, and then I made an A, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I love this unit.
And there's a really good Horrible Histories video about like the different absolute for Britain, because it's a British thing, but
and Habsburgs.
Yes, the Habsburgs. I mean, he just makes that class so fun. With the Lego obsession.
Oh yeah, he's a Lego obsession.
And I mean, it's just so fun in all of these classes. Just the relationships that you form with your teachers, and even just the different rants that they'll go on about completely random things.
I also really liked how sophomore year, the content wise, Miss Ford's class and Mr. Hamley's class, which is pre-IB English, how they like really fit together, and like we'd read some of the Federalist Papers in English, but then we were kind of learning about American Revolution and history, and so it all fit together really well, and that was like a really nice thing.
Oh yeah, I think that kind of happens definitely senior year. That happens, I think, especially because when we have in English we have like a choice reading, and ours is about World War II, and we're going to be learning about World War II in history like at that same time. For summer reading this year for English,